back, everybody, to the Podecito podcast. I'm your host, Surreal469. Thank you for joining me as we journey episode through our collective favorite show. Of course, I am talking about the incomparable Las Vegas. We are on episode 1 of season 2 of Las Vegas. We've made it through an entire season together. Look at us. We're stronger than ever. We're camaraderie here. We're buddies. We're pals. Who's your buddy? Who's your pal? We're on episode 1 of season 2. Have you ever seen the rain? Continuing with the use of CCR, Creedence Clearwater Revival. That's as good as it's gonna get. Theme here on Las Vegas. Last episode, don't you remember? Always Faithful used a couple of CCR songs to great effect. And they are continuing to do so, at least with the title here. We're not going to hear CCR on this one. We're going to hear different music of all different kinds on this one. Let's get the stuff out of the way that we need to get out of the way. This episode was directed by Greg Zisk. We've seen him before on this show. We'll get into where the direction went as we go along. It was written, of course, by Gary Scott Thompson himself.
He's the puppet master!
Yes, he is the puppet master. Sam, this episode debuted September 13th of 2004. It has an IMDb rating of 8 out of 10. It has a Las Vegas The Series rating, which you could go check out on the Wayback Machine. Please go and support the Wayback Machine when you get a chance. They're doing excellent work over there. They rated it 4.5 out of 5 chips. And I found a new place that did some aggregates for Las Vegas. They didn't do many for the first season, and I found it after I completed the episode of the first season. Actually, I think the only one they had from season 1 was the season finale. But the season premiere episode of season 2 is Episode Hub. They have it rated at an 8 out of 10, which brings the aggregate for this episode that I could find of ratings for this episode of Las Vegas, 8.3 out of 10, or a B. Do I think it's a B episode? I'm going to say, at least looking on it right now, close, but I'll show you my rating as we move along. We got a lot to cover. Might as well get into it. This episode starts with some boots in the desert. We see some gun shells as we zoom out of the desert. A Hummer pulls up, and combat boots, it looks like. And we are in the middle of some tense action, some tense shots as we see guns pop off in the sand. And the next shot is some hooping and hollering from some yokels who are in the desert shooting in some vacant area towards the Las Vegas Strip. You see that little segment there, I think, was supposed to make us think that we were going to follow Danny in his adventures as he went overseas to fight for the American Armed Forces, and that was a bait and switch. We got bait and switched on that one, but we see some morons in the desert shooting at just nothing and everything in the dirt. There's nothing else out there. We hear on all versions of this episode that you're going to be watching, whether it's streaming service, whether it's the DVD, or whether it's the original version. Hey, Surreal, you have the original version? No, I don't have the original version. But if you're watching on the original version, and every other version, you're going to hear American Idiot by Green Day. I'm not a big Green Day, never particularly been a big Green Day. I liked Time of Your Life. Something unpredictable. That's probably my favorite Green Day song. I certainly, by the time we got to American Idiot, this became a play. I hate this song. That's because, that's a whole other thing. I hate this version of rock in general, so it's nothing necessarily against Green Day. But we hear it on all versions, and I guess it's fitting for this episode. Very fitting for the episode. But the guys are in the desert. We got 2 guys that are just shooting random beer bottles and stuff out there, and rocks and sticks and stuff. And one guy flips a Montecito chip, $100 Montecito chip. And this bullet goes right through the middle. And that bullet whooshes and hits a no shooting sign as we continue to whoosh down the Las Vegas Strip. It's our first whoosh of the episode, and I love these here. There's nothing particularly special about this whoosh as you go through, like if you go frame by frame, there's nothing particularly special. They pass Paris real quick. You see the live show, or at least what formerly was the live show at Treasure Island, and then we are finally in the parking lot of the Montecito. And as we're in the parking lot of Montecito, there's this blonde woman. She ends up blowing the camera a kiss as we continue to whoosh through the rest of the Montecito, and we pass. We go through to a tank of fish, and the fish flips, and then we whoosh back out into the Bellicera. That's a nice little scene there, and we are met by two morons, and they are morons in every sense of the word. They are central casting for morons. They even have them dressing kind of goofy. One of them asks the other one, "What time is it?" And the guy with the glass in his hand turns his hand to tell the other guy what time it is, and spills drinks all over himself as they're preoccupied with a lovely woman. And we see some guys dressed in black. We later find out that these are morticians, and they're talking about an assistant and having to deal with a dead body. And then we are met with the queens of the Montecito. All four queens. This is how you start a show. All four queens of the Montecito together, enjoying each other's company, laughing, and we're getting a little bit of exposition. Sam is talking about the morticians and their convention and how they've taken over the Montecito. But Sam has also got jokes. Everybody else is talking about it. They don't necessarily want them in the ballrooms or whatever, but Sam's got jokes, and she's the only one who thinks they're funny. I think they're kind of funny.
Dirk is worth $50 million. He's got the largest string of funeral homes in North America, and he's getting richer by the minute because people are dying to see him. Yeah, don't give up your day job. Get it?
After Sam tells the joke, we hear Delinda talk about how she wants dinner in a coffin. Now, keep this in mind, because Delinda's going to have a bit of a problem through this entire episode, but keep in mind the fact that she did it in a coffin once. Anyway, Nessa is fine with them. She thinks they're kind of sexy, and Sam comes in with another one of her hit jokes.
I think they're kind of sexy.
Yes, and they're used to dealing with dead people, so sex with you wouldn't be a disappointment.
It was very funny.
I'm on fire today. That was funny. You laughed.
And not only is no one laughing, everyone walks away. I thought it was funny, Sam. We whoosh back up to surveillance, and we see Mike and Mitch's new mustache. We're going to get a better shot of Mitch's new mustache, but anyway, everybody in surveillance is watching the two idiots play around with one of the cars that they're giving out, as well as the fountain. And this one guy says that they're Dumb and Dumber. We've never seen this one guy in surveillance, but keep an eye out on him. We're going to be talking about him a little bit later as well. Ed is asking about the rundown on these two guys, and everybody in surveillance seems to be taking a bet as to who the stupidest person is between the two of them. The two idiots, they couldn't run any background on them because apparently these guys are completely off the grid. They don't have anything. There's no job history. There's no nothing. There's no living history. And yet they're here in the casino for no reason whatsoever other than being complete and utter morons. Ed notices that one of the guys has an irritation on his arm, and Mike zooms in, and they can't exactly figure what's going on, but there's something underneath his skin.
Remember, this guy's got some kind of a skin irritation or something. Push in on his arm whenever you can. Blow it up.
Looks like something's embedded under the skin.
Give me thermal and infrared.
Whatever it is, it's synthetic and generating heat.
And they are met with a third person. Now, this third person you may have recognized. We'll talk about this third person right now. I recognize this person completely. He is Brian Callen. Brian Callen is a comedic actor. I recognize him first from Mad TV. You may have recognized him from a whole bunch of other stuff. So Brian Callen's first credit is on an episode of News Radio as Russ. He then goes on to do a couple of different things, but like I said, I first recognized him from Mad TV. He was one of the original cast members of Mad TV. He was on there for 3 years. That's where most of you probably, I was going to say that's where most of you probably recognize him, but I'm lying. He did a whole bunch of other stuff. He's usually an eccentric. He's usually a high spirited character. He's usually like the wired guy in a lot of the scenes that he's in, and he got a lot of that from the Mad TV stuff. But where you may recognize him most specific, and he was in 2 episodes of Entourage, that's another place you might recognize, but where you whippersnappers may have recognized him most from is he was in the Goldbergs. He was the coach in the Goldbergs and the subsequent spinoffs. I can't believe the Goldbergs got spinoffs and moved. But okay, he was in them. And that's where you probably recognize him most from. The last thing you have seen him in, the last credit that he has is Best of Brian Callen in 2022. But before that, he was in Think Like a Dog as Agent Callen with Megan Fox and our very own Josh Duhamel. That's right. Yes, there is a connection there with our boy Brian Callen. So he's a comedic actor by and large, if you've ever seen him in anything. And this one, he's actually playing the straight man for once. And that's because he's going off against the DeLuise boys. So with the DeLuise boys, Brian Callen is telling them that they were supposed to meet him in Las Vegas, and they say, we are in Las Vegas. Apparently it's supposed to be Las Vegas, New Mexico, not Las Vegas, Nevada. There is a Las Vegas, New Mexico. I talked about it before. Las Vegas, New Mexico is the place. Remember in the You Can't Take It With Me episode 17, we talked about Doc Holliday? Doc Holliday Saloon, and I mentioned it there too, Doc Holliday Saloon is in Las Vegas, New Mexico, or at least the place of it was Las Vegas, New Mexico. Now it's an abandoned building next to a bootleg H&R Block. But connections all over the place here on this show. The idiots say it's Whoops, and the one with the thing under his arm gets it scanned by Brian Callen. And now's a good... We can talk about the one who got stuff scanned now, because that's a slightly individual one, and you can kind of tell who we're talking about. The reason I call them the DeLuise boys is because they're brothers. That one is Michael DeLuise, son of Dom DeLuise. Michael DeLuise's first role was with his father, Dom, in Hot Stuff in 1979. He was Boy with Fish. Yada, yada, yada. A few years later, he ends up joining his other brother, Peter DeLuise, on 21 Jump Street for 13 episodes, where he plays not only younger brother, the younger version of Peter DeLuise's character, Doug Penhall, but also younger brother Joey Penhall, who comes on to the show later in the series, and it just wasn't... It was on its way out anyway. It was terrible. He may recognize him most from Sequest 2032. He was Warrant Officer Tommy Piccolo for 34 whole-ass episodes. He did Brooklyn South as Officer Phil Rusikoff for 22 episodes. He did 12 episodes of NYPD Blue as Andy Sipowicz Jr. He's been in some stuff, man. Some serious stuff, too, actually. Although 21 Jump Street, he was playing a goofball there, too. So that tracks. That tracks. He was also in Gilmore Girls for 13 episodes as T.I. The latest thing you would have seen him in was in 2013 in Bunheads as Jojo DeLine. Look at that last name that we recognized here on Las Vegas. That is Michael DeLuise. He is the idiot with something in his arm. And the surveillance team can't track the third guy, Brian Callen. He doesn't exist either.
We got nothing on the third party. Apparently he doesn't exist either.
What are the chances of 3 non-existent guys showing up in my casino at the same time?
Not real good.
Not real good.
What the?
Mike then spots something strange on surveillance. And we whoosh down to the cashier, and we see Mary doing some calculating, and she gets tapped on the shoulder. And annoyed, she turns around and sees her man. And I cannot describe this scene. You will just have to watch it.
1 second.
all right, I lied. I can't describe it to you. There's something about Nikki Cox's acting that's ridiculously genuine. I've said it over 20 times on almost every episode, at least every episode where she's featured prominently. She is a great actress. She's very good at the natural reaction, the inflection in her voices, the changes in her breath, how she looks deeply in this guy's eyes. She looks like she's in love. She looks like she is talking specifically to and looking directly at the man of her dreams every time she sees Danny McCoy, and has since the inception of this show. And of course they have her dressed in white. That's just decent costume and cinematography with direction or whatever coming together. But she is in love with this man, and it shows in every part of her interaction with him. Danny tells her that he is not on leave. He is, in fact, discharged. She couldn't be happier about it. And he has a look on his face. He almost looks a little high. He doesn't look like normal Danny. He doesn't look... The brightness in his eyes is a little bit different. He's definitely got a tan.
Why didn't you tell me you were coming? Are you on leave?
Discharged.
You're discharged.
But they embrace each other's arms. They're kissing, and Mary just... If her eyes aren't directly looking in his eyes, they're closed with the passion. But Danny, as they're kissing, is looking to the side because he sees some action. It's even before the action. He sees some people celebrating at the craps table before some guy comes up and just takes the chips. Now, Danny, generally speaking, has had some sort of eye for what's going on at the casino. That's how he got to the position that he's in. But he's got this narrowed eye look, and his eyebrows are down. He looks like he's ready for a fight, not even necessarily to take somebody down.
When did you get back?
Now, we've seen him take people down in the casino before. We've seen the action. We've seen him, one of the last episodes, he was riding some guy's back down the hallway. So we've seen him take physical action with people before, but there's something specifically different about this, where he kind of takes the guy down and he punches him straight in the jaw. Now, the difference realistically is the music. It's slightly manipulative. I don't want to say manipulative. It's slightly manipulative, though, because we've seen the action in the casino before. We've seen him take action. We've seen Ed take action. We've seen them in New Orleans take action against killers. We've seen it before. But this one is supposed to be different because Danny is supposed to be different when he comes back, and we'll talk a little bit about that TV trope as we come along to it. And then Danny comes back around with a smile on his face and says, "I missed you," but that freaked Mary out. What does that mean? Now, as we contemplate that, we go to the intro. The best damn intro in the business. If you're watching on a streaming service, and your streaming service asks you if you want to skip the intro, you can if you want to. But I would suggest skipping that streaming service. Why would you skip over the best intro in the business? The best intro in the business is Las Vegas. Now, contrary to what I believed, because I had the DVDs before, I could have sworn, and maybe this is a reprint on the DVDs, but I could have sworn on the DVDs the first episode of each season had A Little Less Conversation by Elvis as a theme, and then the subsequent episodes did Let It Ride. To my surprise, on the season 2 DVDs that I have currently, it's Let It Ride on the first episode. I thought it would be A Little Less Conversation. That confused me. But whatever. We don't cut through. We watch the intro, and we see the skyline of Vegas. We whoosh down again, and we see the giant Montecito at that particular end of the strip. We get a quick nothing ADR exposition that was useless, but I'm sure somebody got paid for anyway, of the poker or the chip thief getting to Metro, and we see all the crew come back and welcome Danny with open arms. And they make a comment about his new hair, which brings credence to the thought that I had. Remember the idea that came up on IMDb that half the reason for the last episode where he had to go ship back out to the war in 2004 was because he was going to go shoot Transformers and have to explain his haircut. They couldn't just explain this guy's haircut. He couldn't just get a different look. They had to go through all this and then the subsequent episode. That leads a little credence to it, I think. Danny definitely looks off. They didn't necessarily give him bags under his eyes, but he definitely looks off. He's got like a little bit of something on the back of his neck. Some kind of scar on the back of his neck. I don't know if you noticed that. Maybe it's a rash, whatever. I'm not sure. He tells Mary that Mary's going to, him and Mary are going to go on to dinner after she gets off work at 10. I'm surprised Ed just didn't give her the day off and say, go now. But apparently not. Mary's a professional. She's going to wait. And Ed and Danny talk about the thief, and Ed is laughing, but there's something slightly off about Danny.
Oh, looks like you guys have gotten pretty slack since I've been gone. Huh? Yeah, I would have. I was spotted that chip thief before he made us pay for the chips.
As they're talking, they see a Marine come through with his new wife, and we get this trumpet, this music, and Danny's looking at the guy, and the guy's looking at Danny, and Danny's getting some sort of a flashback. Now, the guy's not an actor. He might have actually been a real Marine. Probably. He might have been. They probably did something, got a real Marine in there or something to do that shot. They didn't have him, look more like directly, though. Like, that. I've seen the scene, and I'm like, why does he kind of look like he's... I don't know. Like, they couldn't get, a better vision sight out of the guy?
Let's just say I did what they needed me to do, and now they don't need me anymore.
That's just a nitpick. That's why I have a podcast. I nitpick stuff like that. I notice stuff entirely too much. So Danny is definitely, he smiled a few times since being back, but it's always like a cursory thing that he thinks he knows he needs to do in order to talk to people. Ed asks him if he wants to take a little break, relax for a little while. Danny says he'd rather work. And Danny avoids the idea of talking to somebody, which again is a callback to a few episodes ago when the psychiatrist hit the casino and he talked about how he didn't like talking to a therapist or anything like that. But by the end of that episode, he was talking about, it's good to talk to somebody. So maybe war changes a guy. Let's let the dealer shuffle the deck for a second and we'll be right back. Is your ride missing something?
I can do a few things under this hood.
Well,
give this baby a boost.
Do not
all I'm
go
saying
there,
is,
Mike.
How about a top-to-bottom detail at great prices?
Can you actually do that?
yeah, I can do it.
Okay.
If you're in the LA area, the place to go is Ease Clean Fast Car Wash. Let Eric take care of your car like it was his own.
Welcome to the family.
Schedule an appointment now by going to tinyurl.com/ecleanfast. That's tinyurl.com/ecleanfast. Or text 323-399-3674. That's 323-399-3674. Comes back, we see Mitch, and Mike gives Danny the keys back to his car. And still gives a shot to the anti-lock brakes. And then Danny asks, who's the new guy?
So who's the new guy?
This is Leo. He's been helping out since you left.
Danny McCoy.
Leo Broder.
Welcome aboard.
And I guess welcome back would be appropriate.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
Did you catch that name? Leo. What does that mean? Leo was the name of the character Josh Duhamel played in All My Children. Danny then turns to Ed and says, "Are you trying to replace me?" in a really aggressive tone that takes Ed off guard a little bit.
What are you trying to replace me?
What are you talking about? Leo, no. I just need a little extra help, that's all. What the hell's the matter with you?
I'm just kidding.
Goof.
That is a kind of true-to-life thing. I wouldn't even say kind of true-to-life. That's a true-to-life thing. And we'll see that again in this episode, and I'll point it out again in this episode, but I'll tell you the story now. A friend of mine who I went to high school with, I am of the age, I'm going to date myself now, but I am of the age where when 9/11 happened, I was in high school. When 9/11 happened, I was on my way to school. Actually, I was late. I was on my way to school. And as soon as it happened, I knew that some friends of mine were going to join the armed forces because of that. Including some friends of mine who were already in ROTC. Including this one friend of mine that I'm talking about. I won't name him, but I'll talk about him. I'll give you his initial, G. So G goes over to fight in the Middle East. And when he comes back, he's not quite the same. There are jokes like that he makes when he comes back to civilian life that don't exactly translate to us because we're not in that sensibility. And it's not just rough jokes. It's not just, dirty jokes. It's not just kind of harsh jokes. It's jokes like that with a tone almost of aggression, almost like, "You trying to replace me?" Not like, "Hey, I'm trying to replace you," waka waka, rubbing the ribs, but like almost threatening, like, because they almost kind of snap out of it. And I remember when I got my first apartment, he made a joke like that I didn't understand at all. And he was there with another mutual friend of ours that kind of guided me through that and was like, "Oh, yeah, no, yeah, you're right. He, wears the hat on the wrong side. And I was like, okay. But that's the thing. That is a thing. Love G, but when he came back, it was kind of his sensibility in dealing with people. He's gotten a lot better, but that was his kind of sensibility in dealing with people. So that's not off the mark. So Danny gets clued in on the idiots, including the thing that's under our boy DeLuise's arm. As he tells Mitch to zoom in on the thing under the arm, we get a very good shot of Mitch and his new mustache.
Mitch, enhance that thermal image for me.
You got it.
That stash is hideous. I've never understood guys who insist on this stash. And that includes men that I've known in my life, because my dad was a cop. So I've met quite a few of them had that exact same. It was almost like part of the uniform, and I don't understand why. Who thought that? What universe is that cool? When was that ever actually cool? I know in the 70s it ran wild. I know in the 80s it ran wild, but it's never actually looked good. It's always looked bad. Like, it's always been a terrible look, and I see it making another comeback now. What are we doing? Of all the things in Las Vegas to make a comeback, I would rather we get 3-2 odds on the tables again instead of these stupid mustaches. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Anyway, we then do some manipulation to the screen via Danny, and Danny tells the surveillance team,
Give me a color shift on his body. Cool it down. Change the color spectrum. And that, ladies, is a serial number.
Nice. My boy still
Run
got
that
it.
serial number through everything we got there, Leo, and then post these 3 guys with Metro, FBI, Homeland Security. Maybe we'll get lucky with something.
and Danny is celebratory of himself, but he also isn't. His eyes are darting all over the place. He can't sit still. He's jittery. That's a problem. We then whoosh down through to Mystique. And there is a party going on down there. The music that we hear in this scene, in all versions, is Keep My Love Alive by Universal Production Music, which is why it's in all versions. We see Delinda and Sam talking with a couple of the morticians that are here for the Morticians Convention. Sam is trying to get these guys set up in Mystique to have their end of the convention party because it's the hottest club in town. Don't you know? Of course it is. But Delinda does not want them there because Vegas is sort of a iffy town and she doesn't want the reputation of the Morticians being there. Now, the Morticians understand this already because the Morticians say they're used to it.
Now we hear it's the hottest club in town.
It is, but it won't be if I rent it to you. No offense.
Oh, we're not offended. We hear it all the time. People find out what we do for a living, and all of a sudden, a root canal sounds like fun. You wouldn't believe how many women change their phone numbers on us.
Change their phone numbers? I've had them change their addresses, their medical history, and their sexual orientation.
Ouch.
Sam is determined to make this happen because the Morticians are worth a ton of money. Delinda, on the other hand, just lays it down flat.
Look, they're pathetic. It's one night. Work it out.
Not gonna happen.
Okay, she says she can't wait for it to happen.
So we whoosh back up to surveillance, and we get a little background on our idiot friends here. We find out that they were wanted for questioning on the whereabouts of one of their other cousins, but that's about all that we know, other than that they're on a secondary watch list, but not a priority watch list. Danny, as the scenes continue to go on, he's looking worse and worse. It looks like he hasn't had a shower. He certainly hasn't had a shave. I get that he might be a little bit tanned, obviously, from being in the Middle East and being out in the elements for a significant portion of time, which, by the way, is another thing. Being out in the elements changes your psyche. There's whole studies about how that changes you, even in an urban environment. That's studies that they do on homeless people and how being in that environment, being in that kind of mode changes you as a person and how you think and how you interact, and you're a whole different person. So Ed dispatches the team to go and work on these idiots, including Mike, to put microphones on these guys as they're about to leave surveillance. Well, Leo's still there. As they're about to leave surveillance, Danny can't take his eyes off Leo. He does not trust this guy Leo at all. And maybe that's part of where he's been and the effects that it's had on him, or maybe there's something else. So we whoosh back down to the floor and we see Nessa print out the pictures of our idiots. We see the idiots themselves, and then we whoosh past them to Mike and Danny and get a little bit of exposition on the Morticians and stuff. And we also see Mary walk by, and as she sees Danny, the smile on her face is just permanent. You cannot take that off of her face, maybe. Mike is asked by Danny,
how's Mary been?
Good.
Luis?
Man, don't take me back to junior high with you. Mary's been true blue, like always.
That's an interesting question. However, we all saw it. Luis was sitting right next to Mary. She was bawling her eyes out for Danny leaving. We were all there. We saw it. He knew his days with Mary were fairly numbered, if not over. Mike asks where Danny was shipped off to, and Danny just does not say. We whoosh back through, and we see the guy with the one in his arm being led down there, and we hear Brian Callen say that he's going to cut the itch out of his arm. Mike bumps into him, obviously planting the bug there, and we see 3 of the queens go into Ed's newly refurbished, easier to film in, bigger, more open office. And they are arguing about the merits of having the Morticians go to Mystique or not. And Sam, right off the bat, Sam fights dirty.
Ed, Delinda is having a big problem, and it might stem from the fact that she once did it in a coffin.
Excuse me?
Sam's just trying to be funny.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
She tells Ed that his daughter did it in a coffin once. This is a guy who does not like the idea that his daughter kissed a boy at all, let alone was ready to kill. I don't think he was ready to kill Danny. I don't think he was ready to kill Danny, because I think he figured that Danny would kind of bring Delinda more in line, more grounded, less flighty. But Sam went straight to the jugular. He knew, she knew its reaction to something like that, and he took him aback a little bit. That's the other thing. Linda has done it in a coffin before. Why does she think that the Morticians are going to ruin so much the reputation of Mystique? All the conventions that have gone through Las Vegas, all the parties that have been there, all the people that have gone through there, why does she think that won't ruin the reputation? Who would even know about it? Who's even talking about any conventions that go to any clubs? She thinks they will, and that's why she's in Ed's office trying to argue it. Mary, she's just there for the entertainment, realistically. But Sam, again, goes straight to the jugular and tells Ed,
if it were anyone other than your daughter who just happens to control the location that my clients wish to throw their very expensive closing party at, then maybe we could.
You know how fickle this town is with restaurants and clubs, Daddy. I mean, one night you're the toast of the town and the next night you're dead.
What?
No pun intended.
Listen, sweetheart, I do think you're being unreasonable here. I mean, it is Vegas, and people really don't care what other people do for a living.
and I 1,000% agree with Ed on that one. That's what Las Vegas is. Who cares? Who cares? But Sam is the only one who can fight dirty. Delinda decides she's going to tap into and try to shame Ed for being afraid of clowns.
Unreasonable. No one calls you unreasonable when you skip town during the clown convention.
No. That's different.
Whatever.
It's completely abnormal for grown men to paint smiles and frowns on their faces with bright colors.
You know, Daddy, one would have thought that the CIA might have diagnosed your coulrophobia and done something about it.
Okay, so you have a little problem with clowns, big guy?
Shut up.
And that was probably a mistake, because now Sam knows all about Ed's phobia. But being Big Ed, he can get away with that. He can tell him to shut up. And he gives Mystique to Sam and the Morticians. Sorry, Delinda, she does lose on this one. But when she does, and this, again, Sam is... I like this scene. Because what this scene does is it does kind of demonstrate the hierarchy of the show. Like I mentioned before, I like how when shows lay out the hierarchy of the different characters, right? And you develop... It helps sort of illustrate the family feel of a show like that, right? Ed is the father. Everyone else really on the show are his kids. And it kind of demonstrates that here with Ness and all the ones that are quote-unquote his kids treat each other to some extent like siblings. We don't, and not except when they get together, but we're not talking about that. But in stuff like this, when they're ribbing each other, when they're talking trash to each other, you see Sam at the end of that say,
Delinda, give him Mystique.
Delinda, give the Mystique.
Give the Mystique, Delinda. That helps build the sort of family environment of shows like these. So Delinda's taking off. As she does, she can't help but stop and flirt with Leo. Leo's the new man, apparently. Leo, listen, I can maybe understand why Danny wants to cut his eyes at Leo now, because, again, it wasn't that long ago that Danny was the sexiest man in all of sexydom. In the sexiest land of all sexy lands, of course I'm talking about Las Vegas. Danny was the sexiest one. Danny was the one that all the women were throwing themselves at. And no, it wasn't wish fulfillment by the writers. Yes, it was all natural because he's Danny Alphonse McCoy. Now it's Leo, though. But that's fine, because Danny has Mary. And Danny says he can't wait until 10 o'clock to get together. And I don't blame him. That is 2004 Nikki Cox. I don't blame you, Danny. I don't blame you. He says he can't wait. She says, meet me at my place.
I don't think I can wait until dinner.
Okay.
I need to be with you now.
Meet me at my place.
Bringing up sound now.
Crazy. It'll hurt him if you cut the end.
Okay, maybe that look on Danny's face is a little bit more of a natural look that a guy would have when met with that kind of opportunity. that's a little bit more natural there, Daniel. We cut to the guys on the floor, the idiots on the floor, and they're arguing with each other while they're trying to figure out what exactly the microchip underneath our boy's arm is and what it's about. Obviously, it's not just a regular pet ID. It's very sophisticated. Right now, they think it's a cheating device for something like video poker. But they don't have time to think about it because the guy takes off. And he stops right in front of employees only staircase. He's trying to get away. Ed's got him.
Hey, where'd he go? Ow! 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 You and me have to have a little talk.
Ow! Ow!
Ed's got him by the ear, in fact, and is dragging him through their hallway. It looks better this season, though. I wonder if they spruced some stuff up, added a few lights, etc. We go into Mary's grotto. Mary's got a grotto. Entertainment manager at a high-paying casino, or big league casino, must pay a ton. That is a great layout. That is a interesting. She's got to have gardeners and stuff, pool people. That's a great layout there. And of course, because it's night, the ground is wet. As we see this scene, what we hear, we got another musical cue. The song that we hear as we come to this scene, if you're watching on the original version or the DVD version, is a song that was very hard to find because it's by an artist that's not really known. Probably did some stuff in the early 2000s and kind of faded from memory, but you can find the song on YouTube, and you should. It's a beautiful song. It's All That I Want by Michelle Featherstone is the song that you'll hear, and if you listen on the streaming service, I am convinced that you're going to find AI. Now, it's not the worst version of AI. We've heard some terrible AI songs. It doesn't necessarily sound like AI. It sounds fairly-ish close to All That I Want, but it's certainly a production song. It's not found anywhere else. And it probably is an AI song. So, in this scene, we get Mary having a nice tall glass of beer for Danny to drink as the fire burns. She's got a fire pit! Anyway, I'm jealous. Anyway, Mary looks up at Danny, and Danny's about to explain something to Mary, but Mary cuts him off. She cuts him off to lower her expectations because that's the kind of girl Mary is. That's the kind of person Mary is, realistically. We've talked about this before. Mary is a giving person. She's all about helping other people. In the last episode, the season finale, she was the only one in the casino who didn't ask Danny for anything. Danny helped her, but it's not because she asked for it. Danny was tipped off to the issues that she was having with her father. She didn't want to tell Danny that her father was back in the casino. She wanted to handle it all by herself if she handled it at all. She didn't ask Danny to come to her rescue. He did, because that was the Marine thing to do. That was the noble thing, the always faithful thing to do. And here she is again, lowering her expectations for what happened between the two of them when Danny left a few months ago, where she gives a speech about
What happened between us the night you left? It's beautiful.
I'm not holding you to anything. I'm not. I'm a big girl.
I knew what I was doing. And I knew the consequences. And I'm fine with everything that happened, and I would do it again.
Danny cuts her off and kisses her on the lip. And as he does, she whimpers and licks the kiss off her lips. Again, this is stuff I'm talking about. There's a thing called actors' choices, and she managed to turn up, did Nikki Cox, the attachment that she was going to have Mary give Danny in the few months that they were just, and it was already at peak levels. It was already wife-like material. Like, she couldn't stop picking at him. She always straightened him up. She was always there. Like, she was always taking care. Like, she was always, that clearly in love with this guy figure. And she managed to turn it up in the couple of scenes that we've already seen. That was an unfortunate rhyme, but still. Danny is off, and again, he's still hazy-eyed, and he can't even really say anything other than Mary Connell.
Mary Connell. Will you marry me?
And Mary's about to tear up. She looks down on him, and we cut before we hear anything. And we come back to the pool, and we whoosh down, and the queens are having breakfast by the pool, and we see the ring. Danny got a ring. We see the ring. As we do that, the song that we hear, and this is one of the things why I do the musical breaks here, so that you understand what you're listening to. On the original version, it's Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend. This version is by Nina Corey. Khoury. Now, here's the problem with that. The problem with that is finding any version of that song sung by Nina anywhere to listen to on the internet. It's fairly impossible. It's hard. It's one of those things that when it was recorded, it's probably recorded in some places out of print. Doing this, I run across a lot of those songs that, like, the links and the background and stuff take me to stuff like a CD Baby. It's like the CD Baby's still there. I don't know how functional it really is. A lot of the links may not work so much anymore, but that's one of those things that takes you to almost a dead site to find, and you can find it, and it seems like that's the version, but it's hard to actually listen to. That's the song that you'll hear on the original version and the streaming service version. If you're listening on the DVD, you get a production song. You get just some rando production song. As the queens are eating by the pool, Mary tells the story of Danny's plans on moving to Tahoe and starting a family. And Sam gives a very Sam response.
Starting a family. Family?
Yes, Sam, some people want to start families. I understand Sam's reaction, by the way. I get it. I completely understand. Especially in 2004, I get it. And especially from Sam, I get it. But, it's Mary. Of course Mary wanted a family. Are you kidding? How did you not know that, Sam? You knew that. You knew that Mary is completely different than Sam. But as we do that, Mary apparently hasn't said yes yet. And Delinda asks if she's going to marry him, and Sam, of course, comes right back around when she says,
"Of course she's going to marry him. You'll marry him. We are going to drug."
Right, exactly. We all know that. They're meant to be together, right? Nessa's already thinking about the biggest wedding Vegas has ever seen.
But the most important question is, who's going to be your maid of honor?
And we cut to Danny in Ed's office talking about getting engaged to Mary, and Danny is regaled with stories of Ed and when he knew that he wanted to marry Jillian after one of his missions.
That's funny.
Really?
Yeah. No backup that we knew of, and it was a life that just didn't include Jillian. So I swore right then, God or whoever pulled me.
But as we're watching this, Danny's got the 1,000-yard stare. Danny is not paying attention to Ed. And this is interesting to me. There's no way Ed doesn't recognize this stuff. With Ed's background to the CIA, there's no way he doesn't recognize these signs that he had to have been around enough soldiers. He had to have been around enough servicemen. He knows what we're looking at. But I think this is a remnant of the last episode when he didn't want to talk about Danny going over there in the first place. He kept trying to ignore it. Maybe this is a new trait they're trying to bring to Ed a little bit more in this season, where he just tries to ignore personal stuff with people that are super duper close to him. there's going to be a point where he can't. And there's going to be a point in this episode where he can't. But right now, how is he looking at Danny and not seeing the same shell shock that we're all seeing? Danny is hearing the flashbacks in his head. He can't stand still. Luckily for Danny, this conversation is cut short and he has a new distraction.
Why don't you take a little break?
Yeah, that's a good idea. I'm gonna stretch the legs, wash the face, refocus.
There you go.
I assume you're interested in large amounts of money.
It's Vegas, who isn't?
If you like the podcast and you want to help support it, you can send a Cash App, join our Patreon or Subscribe Star, or buy us a coffee. Just search The Podecito on all those platforms.
As we get our boy with the chip in his arm brought in by Leo and Mike, and the guy says,
Wow, this is just like the bridge on the Starship Enterprise.
Actually, were the Enterprise not fictitious, we'd still be 3 times as large.
Actually, looking backwards, it kind of does look like the bridge of Starship Enterprise is 3 times smaller than that surveillance room, because I don't know if you noticed this is the bridges of the Enterprise, both versions, super small, really smaller than it looked. So we can tell that that the microchip has its own power source, apparently, and there's a code that, and of course, falling back into the fact that Mike is the geek of the show, that he is the tech guy of the show, he should be able to do everything, right? He can create microphones, he can create different things, he creates schematics and stuff like that. He's an MIT engineer, he should be able to do everything technical. But Mike says that he can't break codes. He's not a code breaker. So, conveniently, of course, the tech guy can do everything tech except for the one thing the writers say that he can't do. I love this show. So we cut to Delinda coming into Mystique, looks like in the morning with a magazine and a cup of coffee, and Mystique is completely decked out. We've got wreaths, we've got coffins, we've got the Montecito people setting stuff up all over the place. As we do, this is a musical cue. This musical cue is interesting. This musical cue was a journey. So the song that is played here is, I don't know. And here's why. Because it's actually like 3 different songs. It comes up and it's all rap. Every time this song comes up, it's rap. It's one of the versions was King Size P1 by Joker, which is a Middle Eastern rapper of some sort. One was a Christian rapper, and one was another rapper of some sort. So basically, what I hypothesize is that this beat was cheap to license and cheap to use. And because it was cheap to license, cheap to use, not only did Las Vegas use it, but a lot of small-time rappers used it around the same, actually later than that, around the same time and later than that. It's one of these things that is almost ubiquitous. Anybody who finds it is like, oh, that's really dope, and I can do stuff with it. And they do, but it's sort of common usage. It's sort of everybody's beat. It's not a bad beat, but it's sort of everybody's beat. So I can't tell you what song this is, unfortunately. But it's in all, and it has to be cheap, because it's in all versions that you're going to watch. So we spin around Mystique. Mystique looks like a funeral home. And we spin back around to Delinda, who is incredibly upset. And we whoosh through her tongue onto a red bathing-suited young lady with a tattoo on her lower back. I don't want to call it a tramp stamp, but it's in the vicinity where a tattoo that would be called a tramp stamp was located. And she dives into the pool, and we see my 2 favorite queens of the Montecito, Nessa and Mary, talking about the situation with Danny and the proposal and how it was weird. It was off. Something wasn't right. And Nessa says that maybe Mary's got cold feet, but no. Mary knows something was wrong. Mary knows that something was not right with her man and with the moment. And she's right. We all see it. Something's not entirely clicking. We then whoosh over to see Sam over by the pool, and she is getting chased down by Delinda, unfortunately.
Sam, hold it right there. Samantha Jane?
It's just a few coffins.
And Sam is waving her off because it's no big deal, and it's not a big deal. And didn't Ed already say that they could have the club? Why are you bugging so badly, Delinda? I'm starting to get flashbacks of the episode with Gunther and the cooking demonstration. She is losing it over nothing and is in the wrong position, if you're asking me. Like, just have the party and collect the money.
Don't get your panties in a wad. It's going to be fine.
For your information, I'm not wearing any panties.
Oh, and you feel the need to broadcast that to everyone?
Those last two statements are very Delinda. That seems... Because Delinda, it's not like Delinda cares. She's Delinda. She's out, she's open, she's Delinda. That's one of the things you like about her. She's out in the open. She doesn't care. Why should she care? But for some reason, she's still freaking out about these stupid... Oh, my gosh. Anyway. So the girls are hashing it out. They're upset at each other. And Sam has to explain that the coffins have to be a Mystique because in case the IRS is looking, it's a good tax write-off. That's true. By the way, that's the oldest trick in the book, and it's true every time. You know what I mean? Especially, you go to dinner, you go to lunch with somebody, and you're an accountant, and you say, hey, how are your taxes doing this year? That then counts as a lunch. That then counts as a business lunch. That's how they do it. And the morticians of all people know, death and taxes. They, of all people, know. You gotta at least have them there for, you know what I mean? You could take the write-off. So Mary happens to pass by them, and Delinda tries to plead her case to Mary, who has the most reasonable response.
Mary, she filled Mystique with coffee. Good. You finally got him out of my ballroom.
You I like.
I love that line from Sam. So Mary and Delinda start talking, and Delinda automatically sees that something's wrong with Mary. We cut back into surveillance, and Leo has got his eyes on Delinda. Now, Danny's talking to Leo about how Leo lost the suspects for looking at Delinda, but it's not something completely out of the range of Danny. If you remember this time last season, it was Danny who couldn't take his eyes off the Queens of the Montecito, specifically Mary and specifically Delinda. But Danny does give Leo some actual sage advice. This little bit is more in tone with the Danny that we knew.
Let me give you a word of advice. Ed takes losing suspects very serious, but he takes his daughter even more serious. Believe me, I know.
Before, it's giving Leo a little bit of advice about, Ed and Delinda and the fact that Ed is very protective of his daughter. And we get a profile of Mitch's mustache. Oh, this is, I swear, every time, until he shaves that stupid thing off his lip. I feel obligated to mention how terrible that looks on him. Anyway, we then backtrack and find our idiot friends one more time, and as we do, we see them going into the oversized parking lot. That's not a parking lot that's too big, that's a parking lot for, like, RVs and such. And they're lost in the middle of that sea of campers. We then go through and see Delinda and Mary talking about the engagement situation. And this is a conversation that I like that they're having, considering the history between Mary and Danny and Delinda and Danny. And I like that they're having this conversation. I like that these two women are friends about stuff like this. And they're talking, and I like this conversation too because Delinda has some history with a soldier going overseas and coming back and not exactly being quite the same. And also in that conversation, Delinda admits what we all know. I'm sorry, DD shippers, I'm sorry. But what we all know is that Danny and Mary were meant to be together. She says it. Say it again, Delinda.
Mary, everyone in Vegas knows you two are meant to be together.
Thank you. But Mary's having her doubts. And I understand because it's not right. And it's not that it's not perfect. It's that it's not right in this moment. What's happening is not right. And Delinda does rattle off that they've been best friends since they were 2. And Mary reveals that they've only made love twice. And both times were the night before he shipped out. And Delinda tries to pass it off, take it as a compliment. I'm sorry. But That is a problem. That is, first and foremost, as a guy with a girl who looks like Nikki Cox in the 90s, in love with you? None? No times? No times? None? No times? No times, Danny? No times? And then before you go to ship out, which we narrowed down to be somewhere around 98-ish. Maybe 99. No times? No times? Until you're the night before you ship out? Okay, that's great. And then you come back, and no times again? No times again until 2004. No times again until that one night. No times. I don't know, Danny. Like, come on. Like, what are we doing? Just from a physiology standpoint, what are we doing? But also, add to that, this girl is obviously in love with you. She loves you. We think you love her. What? I don't understand. I don't understand. But apparently only twice. And Mary reveals that he didn't want her when he came back. That's so strange. I think. But Delinda does lay out.
Whenever my father came back from one of his assignments, my mom and I always tried to give him some space so he could adjust. One day they're getting shot at and their friends killed. And the next day they're back home and they're supposed to act normal.
And Mary does reply with, when he gets back to normal, is he going to want to marry her? That is they give Mary the hard dialogue, don't they? They give her the questions to ask, they give her, she's got a lot of self-reflection. So Mike comes back to surveillance and he reveals to the team that the chip in the arm can decode stuff and can decode pretty much anything, which makes every code in the world vulnerable to that chip. Mike believes that the guys are going to be selling the chip and the idiot is there in the room with them while they're talking about this whole thing, scratching up a storm. Ed asks the idiot what's going to happen with the chip. He then gives the explanation of how they ended up in Las Vegas, Nevada versus Las Vegas, New Mexico. But he also, keep in mind here, asked for a sweater. There's a reason he asked for the sweater. Keep that in mind. Mitch goes to ask for it. Danny reveals that there's a government lab up near Las Vegas, New Mexico. The idiot puts on the sweatshirt as Mary comes in because she needs to talk to Danny. And yes, she does.
Last night was just a little weird, Danny.
I'm sorry we're running off like that.
And Mary and Danny have the conversation about how last night was weird. It was weird. I'm sorry about running off like that. You've got Mary Connell in your arms proposing to this woman and you run off afterwards? Clearly something's wrong. And Mary, in the very mature thinking process, asks Danny if he really wants to marry her. And Danny, with the wide-eyed look in his eye, the semi-far-away look, is talking about how much time he's had to think about it, and he knows that he wants to marry Mary. Sorry, I couldn't avoid that one. And
maybe we should wait.
I thought you loved me.
What can I do?
Mary says, of course she does. And again, the acting choices by Nikki Cox, very good. The welling up the eyes, the cracking of the voice. She does want to marry Danny. Oh, God, she wants to marry Danny. Oh, God, she wants to marry Danny. Think back to the night the lights went out in Vegas. Oh, God, she wanted something to happen on prom night. Didn't happen on prom night. On prom night, Danny. I'm not going to chastise this poor boy right now, particularly in this episode. But then Danny then asks, then what's the problem? In a aggressive tone and almost screams, what at her?
What's the problem? What?
He's shell-shocked. He's shell-shocked. That's the term that it was back then. Shell-shocked, what was the other? There was a couple other things that they called it. Gulf War Syndrome, I think they called it at one point. Now it's PTSD, which it is. But, yeah. And I wonder, watching this episode did make me wonder about those old gruff fathers that probably the generation, if you're young and you're watching this, your grandparents' generation, but my generation, well, your grandparents' parents' generation, but my generation, probably our grandparents' generation, maybe older aunts and uncles, particularly uncles, a little gruff, a little stern, because most of them went to a war that they couldn't get out of, and they came back and they were all kind of just harsh and hard toned and kind of, you know, did the periodic sporadic yelling when something didn't go immediately the way they wanted to go. I wonder if that kind of translated into a lot of the temperament and the way that they were then versus more understanding, not an automatic draft or inscription into armed force life, right? And how that translates to how we function as a society now. Danny then tries to bring it back down, but keep in mind that kind of flash that we got there, because we're going to see that again later towards Mary. Later, Mary is kind of semi going along with it, but she's not. She feels that something's definitely wrong here. So as the surveillance team is talking about the RVs, the idiot says he has to go to the bathroom. Leo is going to keep an eye on him and escort him to the bathroom. Ed is tickled pink by these guys.
Whoa. What are you doing?
I have to pee.
Leo, keep an eye on him, will you?
Thank you.
But as he goes into the restroom, his demeanor completely changes. And wouldn't you know it, he takes off his belt buckle. He's got a little kit in there. Oh, what is this? Some sanitizing. Oh, and a knife. And he's dead serious now. Clearly, something's been up. He takes out the chip, and we cut to black. We come back and whoosh through the RV park, and we see some barbecues and people enjoying their time at the Montecito. But in one of the RVs, we see Brian Callen and the other idiot brother. Let's talk about the idiot brother now that we have a little bit of a spotlight on him. He's going to be conducting the auction for that ship. That idiot brother is David DeLuise. He, I guess now, is the most popular DeLuise, especially since Dom's passed years and years ago. I guess he's the most popular DeLuise son. Specifically, before it was his brother Peter, who was on 21 Jump Street. Now it's David. Here's why. David started his career on that same movie as his other brother with Dom DeLuise and Susan Pleshette, called Hot Stuff in 1979, yada yada. He actually did an episode of 21 Jump Street as well in 1990. He plays goofballs. He plays goofballs a lot. He played a frat boy in Saved by the Bell, college years, etc., etc. He was on Roughnecks, the Starship Troopers Chronicles for 12 episodes. I didn't even know that was a thing. He was Bug in Third Rock from the Sun for 40... They had him up for 46 episodes. He was. And that's true. He was. I do remember on that. He was the voice of Dirks in Heavy Gear, the animated series for 25 episodes. 26 episodes as different voices for Mexis, XLR Coupe, Evil Coop, and Sports Fan, specifically. He did a couple of Stargate SG-1 episodes. He did a Yes Dear episode. He's always playing the goofball. He's always playing the idiot. Where you, I was going to say your kids, but you know what? It might be you. Know him best as is Jerry Russo, a.k.a. the dad from Wizards of Waverly Place. And he did that all the way through, including the reboot. The recent reboot, you can see him on at least for a few episodes. That is David DeLuise. He's got a couple things in pre-production right now, but he usually plays the idiot. Oh, what is this? Let's backtrack from the newest Wizards of Waverly Place to one of the other things he was in. Yada yada yada. He was also yada yada yada. He was also yada yada yada. He was also in Hawaii Five-0, the Scotty Conn version. Yes, Scotty Conn's all over the place on this show. But that's David DeLuise. He is also serious. Playtime's over. He's no longer playing the idiot. He's now playing the auctioneer. It's probably on the dark. How do you get? I'm sure you probably get dark web access in 2004 at a casino parking lot with a couple of different cords tied to a computer, right? Like, I'm sure you don't necessarily have to be hooked up to a wall, right? In 2004, I don't think the internet access with that. Maybe. Who knows what the hell they have? The TV show's not a TV show. I'm not a geek. I am a geek. I don't know about the dark web. FBI, who's listening to every one of my moments and movements and conversations. So the auction's getting started as the chip has been activated, and Danny is in a room somewhere watching some screens. He's in surveillance right now watching some screens, but as he's watching the screens, he's basically getting flashbacks of the war he was in. And he even gets snippy with Mike. He gets snippy with his best friend Mike about figuring out where the guys are in the RV parking lot and sending out different teams. And he justifiably gets snippy at the quote-unquote idiot who's screwing around with the surveillance monitors behind him.
How many security teams do we have out there searching the lot?
6 teams of 2, going door to door.
Expand it to 10 teams of 4.
Danny, half the owners aren't in the RV. They're in the casino gambling.
Just do it.
No more coffee for you.
You know the routine, Harry.
Don't touch that! Sorry. Mitch, get this guy back in holding.
As he does, we whoosh into Ed's office, and Ed finally is ready to talk and get serious about Danny's condition right now. Especially because he's talking to Mary, and Mary is not allowing Ed to deflect from what's going on anymore.
Something is wrong, Ed.
He just needs a little time, that's all. Just some time.
It's not the Danny I know.
No, it's not.
Hard tonal switch now as we go into Mystique, and the party is on. There's a girl humping a casket. There are the go-go dancers all around. The morticians are all over the place. There's this one girl who's definitely got her top off, and she lays the top on top of, that was too many tops. She lays the bikini top on the head of one of the morticians, and it's a party. It's almost like Caligula in there, and Delinda is just aghast. Why? We've seen other wild parties in Mystique. I don't understand. So maybe it's the writing of Delinda in this episode in particular doesn't particularly track with. I know you got to have conflict, and it helps to get her in the episode, but it doesn't track with what we've known about Delinda and her party life on the show. It doesn't track. It doesn't. Even in this episode, she contradicts herself. From the morticians being there, from the wild parties that they're having. Wouldn't the wilder the party that the morticians have, first off, overshadow the fact that there are morticians in Mystique in terms of reputation of the club? Secondly, wouldn't that, if you're talking about word of mouth will get out, etc., when people hear about that party, they're going to want to go to Mystique all the time. What is she tripping about? So Mike and Ed are talking about the microchip, and Ed is starting to think that maybe the idiots aren't exactly as idiotic as they seem.
What I don't get is why anyone would trust a complete idiot with something so valuable as this microchip.
Yeah, I've been wondering the same thing, Mike.
This is what they say, blood is thicker than water.
They also say stupid is as stupid does. I'm just not so sure how stupid they really are.
Hold on a second. Let's get a new deck in here, and we'll be right back. The only way to tell you about the Not Literary podcast is to just have you listen.
I am the runway version of me, okay? I am the Paris Milan catwalk version of me. This bitch was the Sears catalog version of me, okay? She was basic, but she was hot, and she looked like me. But she was basic, like very little thought in like, I don't even think this girl could do like liquid eyeliner if she tried.
So if you want to hear more, just go to Spotify and search Not Literary.
But then he spots Danny with the 1,000-yard stare. And Mitch reveals to Ed that he didn't know that Danny never went home and that he's been awake this entire time since he's been back. Ed comes up to Danny and is trying to talk to Danny about getting some help, getting some sleep. If he doesn't want to go home, getting a suite. But Danny doesn't want to hear it. He doesn't want to hear it. He also doesn't want to hear that he's going to get a silver star for his actions in the Middle East. Ed has always known exactly where Danny was, and he knew the mission that Danny was on and what he did. Danny doesn't want to accept the star. He seems to want to forget it. He's for lack, well, I guess there's a better term, PTSD, but he's PTSD. He refuses to talk about it, refuses to get some sleep, refuses to go anywhere, and he's starting to get a little twitchy and a little out of his self.
Need some sleep, man.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
You are not fine.
I'm fine.
You are not fine. Now, if you're not going to go home, let me get you sweet.
So as we get back to things that are happening in surveillance, somebody rolls by with a cart, and the idiot trips the cart and causes a ruckus. As he does, Danny ducks because it's a loud noise, and this gets across more Danny's condition.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And we see that the quote-unquote idiot has plugged a USB drive, a thumb drive, into one of the Podecito computers, and now the information is open to Brian Callen and the other DeLuise boy. And we see Danny kind of not recover, but kind of come back from what he thought was some sort of crash or attack or loud noise around him. And then Leo and Mike reveal to Ed that it looks like our idiots have actually been casing surveillance as opposed to surveillance casing our guys. They've been figuring out how the place runs. Mike then spots that the codes for guests at the casino are flying all over the place. And it reveals that they've been a Trojan horse the whole time. This is enough to snap Danny again. He goes to our resident idiot. He sees that the chip has been brought out of his arm, and he straight chokes this guy up against the monitors. Ed, of all people, tries to bring Danny back down. Again, we have seen the surveillance crew of the Podecito put the boot on the neck of a guy for information, for different things. Not necessarily even for. We've seen it. I know it's different because of the headspace Danny's in, but that's seemingly almost the only reason it's different in this episode. Mitch reveals that there's no control over the computers anymore. Microchip has his own power source, and now Ed himself is putting a little bit of pressure on our DeLuise boy's clavicle, and as he does, Danny is freaking out. And Danny's not only losing it, he's decided he's going to go out on his own and take these guys down himself, since nobody else seems to be able to find them. Or at least he can't take what's going on around him.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I just thought it was
Once the chip is in place, it can only be accessed externally.
Yeah, this chip.
As he does, we get a musical cue here. It's Personal Jesus by Marilyn Manson that plays on the original version and the DVD version. If you're watching on streaming, you're going to hear it's an AI track. Talking about I want to be a hero, etc. It's an AI track, though. It's meh. And like, if you're not paying attention, it sounds okay. But I feel like there's a reason why they decided to use Personal Jesus in the original and DVD versions. It was important enough to at least keep that in the DVD version. I don't necessarily know that I like that track being used here anyway. I think there might have been better tracks. especially considering that it was a fairly ubiquitous song at the time. Like, I feel like they could have found better musical tracks for it just for out of the get-go, but it's here now. Danny McCoy is a man possessed as he stalks through the casino, and we see sort of a different type of video style as we almost kind of blurry vision as Danny kind of stalks through the casino. Seemingly almost not even on any kind of mission, like almost kind of in a haze. Mary catches up to him and tries to get him to calm down, but he's all over the place. He's suggesting getting married now. He's suggesting anything but going to sleep. He's suggesting, like, now let's go elope. But he can barely keep his eyes open at this point. He's barely standing. He doesn't look like he's taking care of himself, as Mary suggests that maybe he just kind of just relax and sit down. Danny flips out.
I'm gonna take you upstairs to a suite.
Let's get married right now.
We can talk about that later. All right? Okay, right now you need to sleep.
Just forget about the sleep. Let's just do it. Let's just go get married.
I'm not sleeping!
And if Mary wasn't freaked out before, she's definitely freaked out now. Ed comes across the scene. Mary explains what happened, and now Ed's on a mission to find Danny and stop him from whatever mission he thinks he's going on right now. But it's too late. Ed only catches up to him as Danny speeds off from the valet. Meanwhile, Ed's got another mission to deal with. He's got to find these guys who are selling all the codes to everything around. Ed and Mike find their trailer, and our boy Waverly Place is out, and he's trying to keep the connection together. He's trying to keep the laptop open so that he can get this thing sold and make a ton of money, except Mike is following him. And as we've seen in the previous episodes, Mike, he's of course the smartest man in Vegas. He might be the fastest too. He's got a stride. James Lejour is an athlete. He's got a stride. Mr. DeLuise is very close to completing the thing, except Ed found him first. Punch, knee lift, and Mike comes in with the line.
Well, when am I going to get to hit a bad guy?
Eventually he will. Not right now. And again, this is what I was talking about. So Danny was going to choke the guy at least until he gave up information. But Ed went ahead and beat him up. Ed beat him up anyway. He beat up one of the DeLuise boys anyway. So what makes the pressure justifiable on this show? Is it, when you just came back from war, it's not justified, but when you've been back for years, it is? We cut to Mystique, and Mystique is having a party. There's literally a guy hanging from the rafters. Nessa is enjoying it. She's laughing. Delinda is... Delinda being a stick in the mud in this episode is what really does... She's the party girl. And Delinda being a stick in the mud about this doesn't really track. We see Sam in one of the coffins. She's seemingly very, very drunk. Nessa's enjoying watching this whole thing go down. Sam is very, very drunk, but she is in the I love you drunk phase, which is a good drunk phase to be in, but it can turn pretty quick. But...
Hi. Are you drunk? No. I love you guys. I'm just trying to win a little bet. I just won the bet. Okay, I don't even want to know.
She's there. She tries to pull Nessa into the casket as well, and we see Delinda get carted off to talk to somebody else. As she's talking to them, we see another couple in a casket, which Delinda we heard it. She's done it in a casket before. Anyway, we see them get drinks delivered to the casket, and she's talking to this guy who's from the Proctologists Association of America. And give it to Molly Sims for this little bit of acting choice she does here after she shakes the guy's hand.
I represent the Proctologists Association of America.
So the proctologist convention director has heard about the party. He heard about what they did for the morticians, and he wants to have that for the proctologist too. And he says to the point that he's willing to pay double, and Delinda, still stick in the mud, is trying to say no. Delinda, would you shut up and take the money? That is cold hard cash, baby. And I'm sure, here's the thing, Delinda. I'm sure your staff won't mind the extra tips. Sam, of course, heard the whole thing. Inebriated state or not, Sam is still Sam.
Whatever they paid, we'll double it.
Excuse me. I'm Sam.
Hi, Sam.
No, back off. Give us a little hug.
We whoosh through to the lobby as Ed and Mike come back in, and Mary catches up with them and reveals some more disturbing information about Danny. His dad didn't even know he was back, and he can't be found anywhere. So now Ed is sending out a search party. They're trying to find him at any place they can. Cut to the next scene, and they found Danny. He's in a hotel. We see that he's in there with his weapon. Dark in that room. Now, by the way, that's another thing. That's not wrong. I know some people that came back. I won't exactly say where. I know. I will. There is a coworker who I have worked with in the past. And very often when he was the first one in the office, the lights didn't turn on in the office. He wasn't like overbearing about it or anything like that. Like he wasn't like turn the lights off or anything like that. But very often when he was the first one in the office, he didn't turn the office lights on because he preferred to be more in the dark. Now he's a great guy, he's jovial guy, great guy to party with, etc. But that's one of the things. It's not even that he's sensitive to light, necessarily in the classic sense. He just prefers it more dark. And that was kind of a remnant of him and the situations he was in. It's a thing. But we do find him in a hotel. This is not a Montecito hotel. Ed and Mary come to the door. Mary is told to wait outside, and that's probably a good idea because it's going to be soldier-to-soldier talk. Nikki Cox, again, great acting. Even standing by the door, you can see the worried look on her face. Ed comes in and he sees Danny and he sees his rifle sitting right next to him. And he can kind of put together the scene that we're talking about. Dark room. Danny tells him don't turn on the light. Ed is almost talking to him like you would. Definitely a situation where we're trying to bring somebody down. But almost close to a situation like he did in the bomb scare episode where he said, hey, I'm going to sit down next to you. I'm just going to talk. Like kind of explaining what's happening in the moment as it's happening, being open, being careful with his movements around Danny in the situation. Danny is determined not to actually talk about it and not to get any sleep, not to fall asleep. And Ed finally asks why he won't fall asleep.
I told you that I don't sleep anymore. Because there's nobody left to watch my back. They're all dead. Every single one.
And Danny, for the first time, looks like he's ready to talk about at least some semblance of it because he knows that Ed understands more than anybody else in Las Vegas at the point would. And that line, I know. Ed, again, knew. He knew where Danny was, and he knew what Danny was doing. Ed knew about the airstrike. Ed is able to garner at least enough trust from Danny that he's able to handle the rifle next to him without Danny flipping out or reaching for it himself. Ed then tells Danny to go take a shower, and Danny asks the questions.
Did you ever have to do what I had to do?
Yeah, I did.
At that moment, we get our last musical cue. The song is Leaving New York by R.E.M. in the original and DVD version. If you're watching on streaming service, it is, again, probably another AI song. Not the worst, but certainly a rip-off. It sounds like... here's how I know it's an AI song. It sounds like somebody said, recreate R.E.M.'s Leaving New York, but without sound like R.E.M., but don't say you're leaving New York. And it did it. And we got it. And it sounded similar enough so that if you're not paying attention... this song actually feels like it fits more than some of the other songs. I would say certainly more than Personal Jesus. Especially the lyrics of it, it's very good. As Danny goes to sort of freshen up for seemingly the first time this episode, Ed doesn't disassemble, but he at least takes the clip out of the rifle, and he goes to check on our boy Daniel, but he doesn't see him in the bathroom. He turns around, he sees a window open, and he thinks to him, and he does what Mary does before Mary did in the last episode when she thought Danny wasn't there anymore, but for a very different reason. Ed says Danny's name for a very different reason, because he thought Danny had taken a leap. But instead, he was in bed. And Ed sits down next to him and gives the chilling line, not chilling, the very poignant line.
I want your back, son.
And then we see Mary come in. And she is keeping watch over this amazing scene. Tears in her eyes. Danny's laid out in bed, and Ed is sort of dozed off in the chair next to him as Mary watches over both of them. Sort of almost, not angelic-like, but in that sort of, it's a good placement of Mary in this scene as the song and the episode ends.
You find it in your heart, it's pulling me apart. You find it in your heart, change. I told you, forever, I love you, it's pulling me apart. I told you, I love you, forever. You might have left if I told you.
So this episode is guilty of the TV trope War is Hell, where Danny came back from war the first time seemingly well adjusted, and came back this time completely and totally maladjusted. And we've seen that to various extents in different forms of media, sometimes to comedic effect, sometimes to more tragic and or sad comparisons. This one is one of the more supposedly heart-wrenching ones. It was hard for me to kind of get heart-wrenched in this rewatch, especially knowing that it doesn't last long. Like, the next episode, Danny, if I remember correctly, is seemingly almost back to normal. It's one of those very special episodes that is a little less special considering that it's a very special episode, and next week we're seemingly back to normal on a lot of stuff, and it's almost a convention to kind of pull apart Mary and Danny again so that they're back closer towards a won't they than they were to a will they. I don't know. Like, especially after the heart-wrenching episode. The last episode, Always Faithful, was very well done, very skillful. I mean, it brought you to tears. This episode seemingly wants to say something, wants to use Danny going to war to say something, but it's hard to kind of, to me at least, like it doesn't hit to me the way it feels like it's trying very hard to hit to me. Also, the B plot with Delinda, once again, I'm completely against Delinda in her B plot. Once again, it doesn't track, it doesn't land, it's not, what is Delinda talking about? What is she doing? Why is she this adamant about something that really doesn't necessarily even matter? But she is. And so, saying that, it's hard for me to call this a B episode. The aggregate sites had it at 8.3 out of 10. I don't know that I'd put it this high. Surprisingly. Might be surprising to some of you, because I would imagine that this episode touched a lot of people. Or they consider it a touching episode. And I'll tell you what, I'll give it hats off again. James Caan is James Caan. He's good in everything he does. Nikki Cox is Nikki Cox. She's great. She's a great actress. I'll give it to you. And there are moments where there are elements of it that do track with a soldier that comes back and has PTSD, and Demel is good in different parts of this episode and stuff. But because this show is Las Vegas and not a heart-wrenching drama, it's a dramedy show, or it's a drama, it's more of a mix of drama and comedy than it is a hard-hitting drama that has more time to explore PTSD and a more honest, probably more I won't even say skillful, but a more fitting way, and it would still fit the tone of the show. Because we're dealing with light and airy show like Las Vegas, it's hard for this episode to land for me. So 8 out of 10, 8.3 out of 10, I don't know, I'd give it this high. With the positive elements in the show, and I like Sam in this episode as well. And Nessa, anytime you get Nessa to laugh like that, like she was when she saw Sam in the coffin, that's an automatic extra point in my book. And again, we got everybody to play, and we got a little bit more backstory in the Mary-Danny relationship. I don't know. It has stronger points than average, but I don't know that I would agree with it. It's an 8. I'll give it a 7 out of 10. This episode, again, it's hard for me to sit here and think about Danny coming home from the war and the effects of that, and how quickly that's going to melt away. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe, again, I've been wrong in the rewatches before, and I will say so if I come back to the next episode and we see Danny still dealing with the effects in a realistic way. But I'm pretty sure the next episode is almost seemingly back to Las Vegas. But maybe I'm wrong. My opinions have been wrong on this show before, and that's why my opinions don't matter. Yours do. You're the one that counts. I want to hear from you. I want you to let me know what you think of this episode, what you think of my opinion of this episode, and all the places. Comment on the show that you're listening to right now. Go follow us on Twitter. You can find us there at the Podecito. And above all else, please share if you want to help the show. It's free to do so. You can share it, you can like it, you can recommend it to people. That's great. That is the most important way. Sharing is caring, and that's the way you get the Podecito out to the people so that we can grow and this community can grow. And you can also talk with myself and other people in the community. I think the main place we do is on Facebook, on the Facebook group. So, and there's a link in the link tree where you can find that as well. If you are so inclined and able to, you can also support us very specifically, I'm going to say, on Patreon and through the Cash App. Buy Me a Coffee's not doing what they should be doing right now, and none of the other places, so I can't recommend. I've tried to reach out to them. I can't recommend them right now, but I can say to do the Patreon, I can say to do the Cash App. Those are probably the best places to help support on a regular basis. And you can do that on Patreon, and you don't even necessarily have to put anything in, and you could be a guest like Angie. Or you can put something in, like $10, and be an entertainment director, entertainment manager, like Anthony. Or you can do any of the other tiers, and get all the extras that come along with those, as well as early access to episodes when there is early access to episodes, as well as ad-free. Ad-free. Even if they don't come out early, you will get them ad-free on the Patreon, and that's one thing that won't be stopping. And there are different tiers. There's ad-free audio and ad-free video. So that's one way you can help. Thank you for joining me on this journey. The next episode is The Count of Montecito. The Count of Montecito is the next episode coming up. I don't remember much about this episode. So again, a lot of surprises. Remember, I don't remember much about too many episodes in season 2. So this one will be a surprise to myself specifically, and we will enjoy that one next week. In the meantime, in between time, thank you everybody for joining me here as we saw Have You Ever Seen the Rain? Again, no reference to the CCR song in the actual episode. I wonder if they actually wanted to use that and then were decided against it at a later date. I don't know why they would. It feels like it's more suitable at the end, although the REM song Leaving New York does fit as well. That one actually does fit. But thank you everyone for joining me here on the Podecito, and until next time, please remember, as always, take care.